Properties of numbers. And now today's joke. Why do people avoid talking about 288? Because it's too gross. Today's lesson is properties of numbers. This lesson is an introductory lesson to the Common Core Standard of 7EE1. The first property we're going to look at is commutative properties of addition and multiplication. Changing the position of the values you're adding or multiplying does not change the sum or product. In other words, you can rearrange the numbers and it won't change the answer. 6 plus 4 is the same as 4 plus 6. 9 times 5 is the same as 5 times 9. A plus B is the same as B plus A. A times B is the same as B times A. Associative properties of addition and multiplication. Changing the grouping of the values you are adding or multiplying does not change the sum or product. In other words, if you're just adding, you can move the parentheses and still get the same answer. If you're just multiplying, again, you can move the parentheses and still get the same answer. So commutative property is just rearranging two numbers. Associative property is regrouping the numbers. In the first example, we have 2 plus 7 in parentheses, and then we're adding 3. We can also move the parentheses so that we group together 7 plus 3. It's a little bit easier to solve in our head, and that would be the reason why we'd want to do that. In the multiplication problem, we have 9 times 4 grouped together and then multiplied by 5. We can regroup this so that we multiply 4 times 5 first, so we're putting that in parentheses, and then we can multiply it by 9. Again, this would make the problem easier to solve in our head. We can do the same thing for the algebra problems. In the first one, we have A plus B grouped together, and then we're adding C. We can group B and C together in the parentheses, and we would still end up with the same answer. And for the last algebra example, they have A and B being multiplied together first because of the grouping symbols. You can move those parentheses so that you group together B and C. Again, you'd end up with the same answer. The final property we're going to look at are the identity properties of addition and multiplication. The sum of any number and 0 is the original number. The product of any number and 1 is the original number. Identity property has to do with what do you add to a number to get the original number and what do you multiply to get the original number. We add 0 or we multiply by 1 to get the identical number. Thus, you get identity properties. Let's take a look at the arithmetic examples. 12 plus 0 is 12. 10 times 1 is 10. For the algebra examples, A plus 0 is A, and A times 1 is 1. The additive identity is 0. The multiplicative identity is 1. Pause the video at this time if you need more time to finish this part of the notes. Don't forget to write a question. I will be checking this in class tomorrow. Let's take a look at example 1, using the associative property of addition to help us solve a problem. Suppose you buy school supplies costing 45 cents, 65 cents, and $1.55. Find the cost of these supplies. You could line up the decimal points and do your math, or we can use our different properties to help us solve this problem. If we have our problem as 45 cents plus 65 cents plus $1.55, we can use the commutative property to rearrange 65 cents and 45 cents. Then we can use the associative property of addition to group together $1.55 and 45 cents. 45 cents plus $1.55 is $2. Now we can very easily in our head add $2 to 65 cents to get a total cost for the school supplies is $2.65. We're going to practice looking at some problems and naming the property that's being used. take a look at example 2a. We have 17 plus x plus 3 equals 17 plus 3 plus x. All we did in this problem was flip-flop x and 3, so that would be the commutative property of addition. Looking at 2b, we have the quantity 36 times 2 times 10 equals 36 times the quantity 2 times 10. In this case, we move the grouping symbols. We move them from around 36 and 2 so that they're around 2 times 10. So this would be the associative property of multiplication. With 2c, we have km equals km times 1. Since we're multiplying by 1, that's the identity property of multiplication. Example number 3, using mental math with multiplication. Use mental math to simplify the quantity 20 times 13 times 5. We'll begin by using the commutative property of multiplication to flip-flop 20 and 13. Then we can use the associative property of multiplication to regroup around 20 times 5. We multiply in the parentheses. 20 times 5 is 100. So now we have 13 times 100, which is 1,300. Pause the video at this time if you need more time to finish this part of the notes. Don't forget to write a question. I will be checking this in class tomorrow. Try the quick check problems on your own. Pause the video, try the problems. When you've finished, check your final solutions. On number 1, you do not have to explain which property or properties you used. Just use the method that's quickest and easiest for you to find the total cost. Be sure to write your answer in a complete sentence. For number 1, you should have gotten the total cost is $18. For 2a, it's commutative property of addition because you just flip-flop the 3 and the 6. For 2b, it's identity property of multiplication because you're multiplying by 1. And for 2c, it's associative property of multiplication because you're changing the grouping symbols. You're moving the grouping symbols.